Good morning. How are you guys doing? Good to see everybody. Today is what? Ascension with A Course in Miracles, I think episode 232, if I'm not mistaken. I am not being in my own environment and being so crazy with kids and getting this house ready to be listed as an Airbnb for my daughter. It's been just fascinating how not being organized, not being on my own schedule, not having my morning quiet centering time and where I drink my tea, where I have my meditation, where I do my reading. Hello, sweetie. It's been a wonderful opportunity to recognize how the things that I'm accustomed to doing in my own space that are grounding and centering. I don't need to do those things to feel grounded and centered. I that is something that I have practiced, that I'm experiencing without any of the rituals. So it's kind of interesting. Some of you may chuckle if you read my newsletter that I sent out today, which I was supposed to send out yesterday, but I we had to get ready for the photo shoot yesterday for Airbnb, and it totally escaped my mind to get it uploaded the night before so it would be ready to go, and there was no time to do it yesterday morning. So anyhow, anybody read that? How the ego gets spiritualized? Did you chuckle, Richard? Oh my God, all the things that we do to try and get our ego. Shh. Hey, little girl. Um, to appease our ego, because our ego is the only part of us that needs to get spiritualized. What is spirit is spirit. It doesn't need to become anything other than be itself. It's an opportunity for us to recognize that which is the light in us, which is wholly eternal, absolutely creative, only loving, only joyful, only cares, only shares, only experiences a desire for co-creation, always from a loving place, always, 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 without exception. And how is it that we have gotten so far from operating from that? We descended. We entered into the realm of the illusion. We just dropped in awareness. We forgot. We knew everything. Then we put blinders on. We forgot, we forgot, we forgot, we forgot. Keep doing that over thousands of incarnations. And that's just what happens. Little by little by little by little, you forget the truth. And that's why it takes time to undo what got built over time. The Course tells us that. And what's really so exciting for me is as a spiritual, somebody who's practicing these teachings from A Course in Miracles, is to experience the peace of spirit while I still have this idea, because it's all an idea, that I have a physical vessel and I am here. And this is what I'm going to write about in my next newsletter, because I started writing it yesterday. Just the experience of all of it, of being having to leave early in the morning so that the photography crew could get in here and do what they needed to do and stage a house. Do you know what it's like to have a photographer come to your house at 9 a.m. when you have two little kids that you have to get up and moving and out of the house? And you've got to leave the house perfect, like showroom perfect. Oh my gosh, I was just thinking back to the times when I was a young mother and I could barely get myself organized by 12 o'clock. I could barely get put clothes on by 12 o'clock because the kids take up all your time. A beautiful stage of my life. And I'm so glad that that's not my stage anymore. At 64, I think I am. I don't think I'm 65 yet. At 64, I would not choose to have babies. I wouldn't choose to have little ones around me as like mine. But as a grandmother, I had this idea that I would be a grandmother and my daughter would do all the parenting and I would just enjoy the babies from time to time and hand them back. But life, the script was that I was going to be living not only near them, but with them. And so I made my trek to Colorado, and boy, has it been high level uh, learning. because not only do I sit with the most amazing gurus I've ever been with, who live in the now moment, who experience, who are moved by a desire for fun. That's it. That's what motivates them. They do not get up and say, okay, what's the most depressing thing I can do today? But yet, that's what we do. Many of us who have jobs go to the most depressing place we can be in all day long, do a job we don't like, work for somebody maybe we don't like, get paid a small amount than we actually thought we were going to get, because half of it or most of it is going to be taken by the government. You got to pay the Social Security, you got to pay the Medicare, you got to pay the state taxes, the corporate taxes, the um, uh, national tax, whatever. It is crazy, crazy, crazy how many adults get up and say, not consciously. This is the beautiful thing about understanding the mind, about understanding psychology. But we wake up and we think subconsciously, I am going to go to this place that I don't want to be in all day to pay the bills for things that I don't even have anymore. I had them and I gave them away. I took them to Goodwill yesterday. I don't even have them, but I'm still paying the bill because the credit card bill is going to come in tomorrow for that thing that I got rid of because I didn't like it. It is crazy how the mind has been conditioned into believing so many things that are not true. But here's the cool thing about that. When you begin to look at it as, well, isn't that fascinatingly creative? When you begin to go, wow, that's really creative that people choose to get up and be as miserable as they can be that day, that they're doing it willingly. And people can say, oh, no, but we have to pay the bills. Who made you take on those bills? You got to go back to where these thoughts began. Janie, you were telling me about that the other day, how you were remembering. You got to go back to the beginning of your thinking and then go beyond that. Go back beyond that. Every thought system has a beginning. Religion, Christianity has a beginning. Judaism has a beginning. Buddhism has a beginning. Do you realize that Buddhism started Buddha didn't start Buddhism. Buddha was a Buddhist. Actually, he wasn't a Buddhist. He was a Hindu who studied something different, opened himself up to hearing guidance, and from that, we get Buddhism. People after him attributed to him, because he was a Buddha, this philosophy. You could almost call it a religion because of the way that it is treated. And Jesus, we have Christianity and we attribute it to Jesus. Jesus wasn't even a Christian. He was a Jew. So everything has a beginning. And when we are curious about what that beginning is, then in that curiosity, we can go further behind that. Not a single one of us have original thoughts that are ever going to be different than what God wanted for us. God willed for us to be happy. God willed for us to know our eternalness. These little kids, they act like they're invincible. My daughter's house happens to have a pool. The water is freezing cold because it's been pretty cold here where we are at in Florida, interestingly enough. Super cold water. They don't care. They were jumping in the water. And we go to the beach, take them to the beach. They're in the beach along with a couple of other people. When I grew up in this and lived in this area for a little while, between 14 and about, I want to say 21, 22, I lived in this general area in the Tampa Bay area. I went to high school just up the street from here. We drove by my old high school not too long ago. And it's just fascinating to think that I would go to the beach and I would watch people in the middle of the winter. I wouldn't get in there, but people were in there and we used to say, oh, they must be Canadians. The judgments that we make, well, they're from Canada, they're further up, so they don't mind the cold water. But these kids, they don't care. They want to have fun. They see water, they want to play. They're not focused on the cold. I mean, he would come out with lips practically purple and shivering, never complained about the cold. Always was about how much fun could he have? How many buckets of water could he get out of the ocean while the ocean was coming and going, or in the pool? How many things can he retrieve that we were throwing in because he just wanted to play? We are, every single one of us has that original knowingness inside of us. And as we begin the process of descending, little kids, love, joy is their natural state of being. And then what happens? Life happens. They are indoctrinated into believing things that are not true. They're given their religion. Well, let me put a different chart that makes it a little easier to understand. We go through the soul's journey. The soul says from another level, a level of consciousness where you know that you're going to come in, you pretty much pick your parents, you know ahead of time a lot of what you're going to experience. The big stuff is already established. Why? Because you have lessons to learn. Why do you have lessons to learn? Because the previous lifetime you did things that require learning why you did that. And it typically requires that you experience the opposite. This is why the 3D experience, we have to understand 3D is all about dualism. It's all about polarity. There are always two things. There are always the idea of opposing things, the good and the bad, or the good and the evil, the right and the wrong, the black and the white, the up and the down. That is what happens in the third dimension. So we gladly come in to work out what we didn't work out the previous lifetime. All of that's happening in our mind. And I know that this trips people up, but once you get it, it provides such a sense of liberation. What you are is a thought in the mind of God who has the ability to have your own thoughts. And once you accept that, oh, so what I'm in the mind of God thinking things no different than when you are daydreaming in your mind, you're off. I mean, I remember being in school. I was one of those kids. I was looking out the window and I could imagine myself in different places. I was blessed that our family did a lot of traveling. So being young and imagining I was back in St. Thomas or I was back in Switzerland or I was back somewhere else was not hard to do because I'd already been to all of those places. So what did the teachers not like? A child who's not being indoctrinated. I'm looking out the window, imagining my friends that I met when I was at the beach in St. Thomas. And the reason okay, so I told you I lived in Clearwater from 14 on, but before that I lived in the Dominican Republic. Well, we were a well-to-do family. We didn't vacation in the Dominican. We vacationed in the other islands. So we went to other places. And I was always imagining, oh, the friends that I made in when I went to Venezuela, because I we actually went to Venezuela on vacation back, 40, 50 years ago. It was a beautiful place. And the friends that I met when I went to Trinidad, or the friends, the people that I played with when I was in St. Thomas. So I'm looking out the window, imagining all those things. Why? Because what was being taught to me by the teacher was boring, very boring. But my imagination was always active. I could see them in my mind's eye. That is what we are. We are in the mind of God. We are God sees us in its mind, in its mind's eye. It knows us. It doesn't have to see us with eyes. It knows us. I wasn't seeing my friends right there that I had just played with the summer before. They weren't there for me to look at with my eyes, but in my mind, I was imagining, and because I was remembering the truth that I had experienced. And that was way more fun than whatever the teacher wanted me to memorize and regurgitate. So we have that ability to be creative in our minds. We don't even need to go somewhere to do that. We can do it right where we're at. But then we begin to forget who we are. The Course in Miracles is designed to help us train our mind out of the what we have learned. It's a systematic process that we must undertake. There is no way out of this. And I'll tell you, the reason we have to go through a mind training process is there is no way to exit the illusion that you're separate from God, the illusion that there's something wrong with you, the illusion that this third dimension is all there is to train your mind to think differently. Why? Because our thoughts create our reality. So you must recognize that there are two thought systems in your mind. In the third dimension, the thought systems of the ego and of God have been given equal power in this dimension because we believe that the ego is true. We believe the ego thoughts are facts. So in the third dimension, we must understand the ego thought system, but then we have to have the truth about God to contrast it, to give us the opportunity. Do I like this or this? Like, do I like chocolate pie or do I like apple pie? You know, how do you know which one's your favorite pie? You try them both and then you decide, oh, no, I don't like that. I was, my grandson, we were talking the other day about trying foods, and he would tell me, I don't want that one, Abwe. Why not? Well, I already tried it. I don't like it. Oh, okay, it makes perfect sense. So we have tried the ego's way. Look at the world right now. Do you like it? Do you want more of that? If you don't want more of that, then the opportunity is to go to the place where you learn the thought system that provides you what you do like, what you do want. The Course in Miracles puts both of those side by side, gives us the contrast. This is the way the ego operates. It's all about the outer world, it's the human journey, and it's all about falling asleep in the illusion of separation. You are informed by the outside. You believe that the outside has power over you, and then you begin to categorize those outside of you as the ones you like, that you don't like, the power ones, the ones without power, the ones that have authority over you, the ones that don't. And that's what is 3D. We're in the process of ascension where you get to choose. Do you want more of that? Do you want to eat more of what you don't like? You ask Ryder, my grandson, he's going to say, no, I already tasted it. Tastes yucky. Okay, so what do you want instead? Most of us are trained into wanting more of what we like in the 3D world. Well, I want a nicer vacation home. I want more money to have this kind of travel versus that. I want a nicer body. I want it's all about the outer world. It's about what's here. But when you start entering into the inner world, that's what this is all about. This journey is all about the inner world. You're coming to know your thoughts, your thinking, your feelings, why you feel the way you feel, why you think the way that you think, and you begin to use logic that is beyond the logic of the ego, which is everything is based on duality. You begin to recognize the logic of God, which is based on singularity. It's oneness. There's only one, and it is only love. So when you begin to move into the understanding of the truth of who you are, when you experience it a little bit more and you feel it and you ground yourself in it more, you realize there's really no choice. There appears to be a choice that you have to make to get the hell out of 3D. And I mean, get the hell out because this is hell. The Course tells us that ego has created hell that we have become accustomed to and have accepted as somehow, well, this is normal. But to move out of hell and experience heaven, you must make the choice between two thought systems until you're so grounded in the truth of God's way of thinking, which is not thinking, it's knowing, where love is all there is. That's when you move into the levels of wisdom. When love is all there is, then you can look upon the fallen world because it fell into lower frequency. You can look upon the fallen world with compassion. You can go, oh, I was there too. I did these things. I got indoctrinated. I believed things that were not true. I learned that religion has a beginning point. If Jesus wasn't a Christian, then what was Jesus? Oh, he was a Jew. Okay, then let's look at that because those things informed him. What are the things that he learned that brought him so that we could then create a whole new religion around that? Well, he studied Buddhism and he studied Hinduism and he studied other things because Buddha was there like 800 years before Jesus was. So he had Buddhism, he had Hinduism, he studied the teachings of the Far East. As a matter of fact, there were books written about the masters of the Far East, the teachings that Jesus learned. He studied in Egypt. He learned about mythology. He learned about so many things. So, and then what was there before that? Before those things were created, what was there? He went all the way to the beginning and he returned to love. He returned to knowing what God is. He returned to knowing that he's pure spirit. That's why I do E equals MC squared. The energy that we are is experienced as the matter that we see. But Why would you focus on the matter when the energy is what is there first? It's what powers it. Jesus focused on the truth of who we are. And then he dove into that. And when he went to the beginning of the beginning, he found the love of God. And he told us, I and the Father are one. You cannot not be one with that which creates you when what you are is non-physical energy, eternal for always and forever. And when you know that, when you actually, you first have to accept it. Your mind has to be prepared at some level that there has to be more than that. And I shouldn't say you first have to accept that, because a lot of people have a spiritual awakening, and it is like, for me, I had an experience with God, and then I had to begin the process of accepting that that was true, because I felt it and nothing could take that away. Nothing could take away that experience, that knowingness. Some of us, though, we learn and we begin to accept and we begin to train our mind, and then at some point maybe that experience happens. But it's not necessary to have that experience if you just use logic. If you just use logic, does it feel good when you think with God? When you take the teachings of the Course and you acknowledge that your thoughts create your reality, when you have at least a basic understanding that you have the option between two thought systems, and you choose to see the world through the eyes of forgiveness and the eyes of God, and you have compassion for others, and you practice true empathy, you don't have to have an experience to recognize that it feels better to be kinder. That is the experience that gives you that knowing. And then you start judging, you start blaming, you start shaming others, and you've had enough experience with the peace, and you go, oh, that doesn't feel so good. For a very long time, being righteous and being superior or feeling victimized, that felt good to me, because it was a high. Ego, to think egoic thoughts is to have an addiction. And when you have that addiction for ego, and you need to be right, you're going to get that high. And that high felt good because it provided that temporary sense of righteousness. In that moment, in my righteousness, I could feel I'm in charge here, never knowing that all that I was doing was giving my power to a thought system. I wasn't in charge, but I was in charge because I was giving power to the ego, but I didn't know that I could change my thinking. I had no idea that I could pick my thoughts like I pick my clothes, like I pick my food. I had no idea that I could say, no, I don't want to think that anymore. That thought makes me feel separate from you. That thought makes me feel superior to you. I'm not going to think that. I was like, hell no. If it makes me feel good to be superior, then I'm going to think that thought. Never questioning, because I did not know different. You enter this journey, you train your mind, you begin to know different. And in this time of ascension, which is just an acceleration, we are in an acceleration of that has never happened before. And not only do I know this within myself because it was shown to me when I had my encounter with God, but also I'm listening to other channels and they're all saying pretty much the same thing. There is an acceleration for those who want to move to a higher dimension. The 3D doesn't go away. We're not going to get rid of the ability for souls to have this experience. This doesn't go away. But what happens is that those who want to move to a higher frequency and have an experience at that higher frequency, and experience a world that is of that frequency, must train their mind and become that frequency to manifest that frequency. Why? Because energy equals the matter that we see. You get in alignment with the energy of love, you're going to have a planet where love is what reigns supreme. Until then, your energy blocking light becomes fear-based, and it creates the matter that you see. It creates a planet, it makes a planet for us to experience duality and polarity and everything that is unlike love. In the acceleration, there is nothing else is happening except for a blessing. It's an opportunity to catch the train to move into that higher frequency faster. Course in Miracles is such a powerful way to get there faster. It's like a direct path to just shedding that which does not belong anymore to one whose mind is absolutely, you're aware that your thoughts create your reality, so you're now in control of your mind. What happens is that those who want to continue to live in that reality, they get to have that experience. We got to have that experience. How many lifetimes have we incarnated and had that experience? We got to play in the muck for however long we wanted to. So we're not going to deny anybody their experience to go that low. I said the other night, it's like a game of limbo. How low can you go? Well, you can go as low as you want to go. Why? Because creation is unlimited. God is unlimited. We have been given full free will to go however low you can go. And as low as you can go, well, that's where your lessons are. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people need to learn from fear. I did. Those were my best lessons. Becoming disempowered by choosing to think thoughts that I didn't have power were some of my most powerful lessons. I don't want to give up those lessons. Or those experiences, they help me. But now, in the phase of wisdom that recognizes I can also learn from loving experiences. Do you know how much I learned from my grandchildren? I don't learn through fear with my grandchildren. I learn through love. It's absolutely amazing. The stretching of ideas, of opportunities, places, experiences that I put myself in, learning through love. I don't have to be hurt to learn. The ego needs to be hurt to learn because it's too dense in its righteousness. And see, I'm right. That person hurt my feelings. I'm right. That person made me feel bad. Good for you. Good for you. You're a powerful creator, utilizing your creativity to give your power away. Isn't that funny? I mean, think about it. What a paradox. You made me feel bad because I chose not to feel good in the moment because I wanted to believe that you're the one who's the source of how I feel. But I'm the one who's doing that. I mean, once you begin to see the insanity of it, it's like, wow, if you change your thoughts, you wouldn't feel bad. But your mind has to be trained. You have to have that learning until you get to the place where you really are committed to one thought system. I'm going to think with God. I am worthy. I am loved. I am the beloved child of God. Course in Miracles tells us God has one child. They put it in there in terms of one son, but you can change the word if son, if you don't want to be son, if you want to be daughter, if you happen to be female or whatever gender you choose to think that you are, doesn't matter. You are the one child of God. You are the one that God imagined, and you are holy and worthy and beloved. So do you want to accept that? Well, when you have gained the wisdom because you've gone around the merry-go-round enough times, whoops, sorry about that. Speaking of merry-go-round, my granddaughter was on the merry-go-round yesterday. And as she's twirling around, I'm thinking, oh, that reminds me of going around in circles most of my egoic life. So if you want to stay on the merry-go-round, that's perfectly okay. But if you want to exit the merry-go-round, you have to become open-minded. You have to begin to get curious. Where did this start? Who started this? And utilize logic to go beyond that. What was there before that? See, I'm not interested in what other humans think because I now know it's very limited. So why do I want to read history books written by humans? That's not interesting to me anymore. I want to know what God thinks. I want to get to the truth of it all. That's the mind that I want to get to know more. That's why I'm so into the different uh, extraterrestrial stuff. I'm so excited that President Trump put out a statement last week saying, you know what, it's time for disclosure. And you know what they're going to tell us? That there is extraterrestrial life everywhere, that we've been visited by them, that we've been guided by them. Why? Because God did not just create humans. God's mind is infinite. So in that infinity, there is so much more. And those beings who are communicating with us now through channelings or through, direct encounters or through experiences that so many people are having in nature, what is happening is that it is creating an opening in the mind, getting really curious and open-minded that there's so much more. Because love doesn't just show up as humans or dogs or dolphins. It can show up in infinite ways. And I couple of the channels that I like to listen to, I go back and forth, and I have my consistent channels of Jesus, and I love those messages because they always support the course. And then I like to bounce around with those who are channeling extraterrestrials from different dimensions. It is vast out there. It is so vast out there. This world with our blinders on is so teeny weeny. If you really think about it, the world, the earth in a vast universe that is infinite. I'm going to do this right here. Let me see. I want you to see it. Is a dot. That's it. Can you see that? Probably can't see it. That dot is our world. And that's what the ego wants us to continue to focus on. What's out there? Massive, massive. And it's all God's mind. It's all of God. And when you move into the higher frequencies, meaning you're moving more and more into the purity of love, undivided knowing of what you are, absolutely undivided. There's no thought that would block love, period. I want to know that. I want to know, what is it like to operate with love. I mean, for me, this journey, and most of us in human form, if we get to 51%, where we're letting love guide us 51%, we're already in wisdom. Because now we know I prefer I prefer love over fear. Like my little grandson, I prefer to eat this over that. Once you get to that place that you prefer love, now you know you have home base you can go back to. That knowingness of the truth of who we are. I'm going to turn this monitor off because my daughter is about to put her daughter to sleep and the monitor is still on in here. Anyways, when we recognize the incredible vastness of what God is, then you're going to be so thrilled to know what is beyond grocery stores and latest trends and the newest uh, car design. I'm so uninterested by the latest car design. I want to know how to teleport. I want to know how to instantaneously move from here to there, which I know is possible. That to me is way more interesting than the latest model of metal. I mean, it's like, hello, but that's just me. That's just me. I was very interested in all the other stuff and I couldn't wait to hear the latest and the greatest. But when your mind expands to the places where it's unlimited, or let me just say, I accept that unlimitedness is a thing, then to have time to just sit and open up, Holy Spirit, what else is out there? It's just so fun and so exciting. Today, I want to take us to lesson 96 in the Course in Miracles because we're at a time where we have to understand that much is being revealed on this planet. And the reason it is being revealed is because it's always been there. It's been there for thousands upon thousands of years. But there are so many of us who have made the choice to operate from love, and when you think of love and you think of light, it's the same thing. To operate from love, we are shining our light. We are extending our light, which is making it easier to see what has been in the darkness of the 3D world. What makes this darkness operate, what makes us reincarnate to work out our karma, is because how low can you go? And there is so much light on this planet because a lot of us went to how high can I go? I want to experience the highest of love. I want to experience the highest of joy. When we make that decision, and now we are accepting, as the Course tells us, that we are the light of the world, our light is shining. What does that mean? You can see more clearly what has been hiding in the darkness. And the only way you can be indoctrinated and pulled down here is because there's a lot that is hiding in the darkness. When you think of yourself, and this is very offensive to the ego, but I'll tell you it's liberating to the soul, to the one who's waking up. We have been puppets. Yes, we have been puppets. When you incarnate, you're incarnating, and it's like you enter the planet and you go, okay, put the strings on me. and I'll just be a little puppet. You train me and fill my mind with information, and I'll just be a puppet. I'll just say the same thing, and it's like being a parrot. You tell me what to say, and I'll just say it. Oh, I'm mad at you, and you did this. And we are all puppets on a string. Who is managing the strings? You have to understand that in the 3D world, those who control the strings are those who have gone as low as they possibly can, because no human who enters the highest highs wants to control another human, because you see everybody as brothers and sisters. So who controls the strings? Those whose mind is so filled with untruths. However, they know the power of the mind. They just haven't gotten to the heart, but they know how the mind works. They utilize psychology. What do you think advertising is? Pure psychology of manipulation. Do you know that just about every advertising agency, at least the big ones, have a psychologist or use several psychologists that are part of their teams? Because they study. If you go back and look at the advertising, especially when that industry got really big, they utilize, the guy, they call him the father of PR. Oh goodness, I can't remember his name. Maybe it'll come to me, but it's not necessary. He was the nephew of Freud, Sigmund Freud, the famous psychiatrist. And what did they know? They knew psychologists understand psychology. Just a psychiatrist can give you medicine to deal with your psychology. But psychology without spirituality can only be used to help you to monitor how you feel, to control what it is that you want. Bernays, that's his name. Bernays, I can't remember his first name, but Bernays is his last name. Father of public relations, because he was hired to help advertising industries. I believe what his claim to fame was, he was hired by a politician to help him win. And he told the politician what he needed to do to win, and advertising firms then began to use him, or maybe it was the other way around. I don't need to know the detail. I don't need to be right about that. But when you understand psychology, you can control what people do. Do you realize that advertising is nothing more than to tempt you to buy something you don't need? To make you feel inadequate about who you are, so that you will spend more money on cosmetics or that implant, wherever you want to implant it. That is all about making you feel like if you don't have that thing, there's something wrong with you. And you don't want to be wrong, do you? The ego doesn't like to be wrong. So psychology is a big part of what is happening in the world. So when you go to lesson number 96, it says salvation comes from my one self, capital S self. That is psychology. Your salvation, your moving out of the world of illusion of separation, your salvation comes from knowing your one self. You've got to understand the psychology that got you into the 3D world to believe that you are separate from each other. You've got to understand that psychology before you can return yourself to the truth of who you are. And to return to the truth of who you are, you first have to see what you believe that made you not remember that. So in this particular lesson, and the reason this is such an important lesson is because we're going to be seeing more and more and more the need to understand what is happening with the Epstein files is necessary for you to recognize how low can we go. We can go very low. And it's not that Epstein's the only one who went that low, is that there's a whole community of people who have been given power, who have money, who have gone very, very low. And when you recognize that they chose to go as far from truth as they can, they moved into a contraction. That's what this is, contraction. They deny God, they know psychology, they understand the mind, but they're projecting their separation in the most absolutely, I'm going to just use the word evil of ways, that in that sense of separation, the only way they can return to a sense of oneness is by taking another's life. And when they take another's life, to them, it's like, I'm bringing in that life force to me. I'm bringing in that love to me. I'm bringing in that blood to me. That blood is regenerating me. And when you move that low, and listen, this is not new. You can go back in the Bible. They were doing human sacrifices. You can go back through mythology and bringing in the virgin girls and uh, offering them to the gods of the sun or the gods of fire or whatever God. That was part of what was done. So it's nothing new under the sun. That's why you have to understand, where did all this start? There is a beginning point where humanity began to choose to operate with these ways of attempting to make themselves healthier or happier or younger or more vital. You're going to find out as we begin to move down the path of disclosures that we have been in this planet has been visited by beings who were not necessarily operating in the most loving of ways. Why? Because we're not the only 3D planet in in the cosmos. We're not the only 3D civilization in the cosmos. This is an infinite creation. We have so many timelines, so many parallel realities. And when we begin to understand that not only have we been visited by those with good and evil intentions, we also have on this planet those who operate with good and evil intentions. Why? Because you can go that low. And when you are on the journey to ascension, you are training your mind to be the keeper of the light. And what that means at the highest of levels. And if you're not there, you've got to practice honesty. This is why one of the characteristics of a teacher of God is honesty. You have to be super honest. Where are you really? If you're still judging, if you're still blaming, if you still feel like you have to perform for the outer world, if you're still paying your bills out of fear or your taxes out of fear, you're still believing that the outer world has power over you. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But the honesty allows you to ascend. The dishonesty holds us in these spiritual cul-de-sacs going around in circles. We cannot really move into those higher realms while we're still fearing the outer world. When we give power out there, we are saying, and it's us, always our mind saying, that one knows better than I do. So salvation comes from my one self. You've got to know who you are to save yourself, to spare yourself, to cut the strings of the puppeteer. And what's so amazing is when you begin to see it clearly, the puppeteer only had those strings on you because you chose to come and incarnate and just try out. What is it like to be a puppet? Nothing wrong with that. I mean, talk to Pinocchio. I'm sure he's not going to tell you that there was something wrong with that. We all have the ability to choose whatever it is that we want to experience. So as we begin to hear about the extraterrestrials and how our government and our world has been infiltrated by that, go back to the Old Testament. You're going to read about the Nephilims. You're going to read about those lights in the sky that kept on moving. Those were spaceships. Those were amazing beings. When you hear things about the giants, we've got to get out of such a small mindset, such a tiny little idea of what's possible, because how can you be controlled? Your mind is fed very limited information. Just like we're being fed very limited nutrition and it's affecting the human body, our mind is being fed very little information that is factual. So we have to come to know God so that we can have compassion, because our mind has become so open that anything is possible. Not to judge it, but so that we can decide, I don't want more of that. No different than my grandson has preferences for the food that he eats. Nothing wrong with that. Because when you have a preference for love, you see everything very differently. You see everything as nothing more than a call for love, because they forgot love is the only choice, the only way to return, the only way to really be happy. Or it's just love. It's just love. You don't have to do anything about it. This world is going to show us all of the ways, many, if not all of the ways, that we can be unloving towards one another. So be ready. These Epstein files are already showing us If you haven't already seen the headlines, maybe you're diving into some of it. I personally am not diving into any of that. The headlines tell me all that I need to know. But I have studied, I have studied mythology. It's one of the things that my mom was just so into. So I have studied, I have seen the sacrifices that have been done for the gods. When I forget, I because again I don't know the Bible that well. When the stories about when Jesus was born, the emperor decided, he didn't want to have competition because they heard that the Messiah was born, and they went ahead and sacrificed all the newborn boys. Crazy things like that. So it happens. But as your mind is singularly focused on wanting to know what God is, you will come to realize that God is a loving creator, gave us free will to play the game of, how low do you want to go? You can play that game if you want to. So anybody who's playing that game is because God said it's okay. Not so that we would go down there and get lost, but because God knows that you can only go so low. When you hit bottom, a common term in the Alcoholic Anonymous, in that movement, is a common term. When you hit bottom, then you will decide, okay, I don't want to go any lower because there's no lower to go. Yeah, you could kill yourself, you can commit suicide, you could die of alcohol poisoning, but guess what, you're going to come right back with karma to work through that if you don't consciously begin the journey of ascension, begin the journey to remember the truth of who you are. So the Epstein files are just showing us, it's all it is showing us how go humanity can go. And because we have blinders on, because we were trained into putting blinders on, we were not acknowledging what was going on, and in many ways funding that. Because where did they get the money to do so many of those things? Well, we were paying taxes. We were funding so much of that nefarious stuff because the government is, when you think about it, is so much of it up until now, or until maybe not too far from here, it has been a system of taking advantage of those who are willing to work and pay their taxes when it is not something that is what God wants for us. But God doesn't tell us that we can't have that. No worries. She came in for the monitor. That's why I had turned it off earlier. So we have an opportunity right now to, with the teachings of A Course in Miracles, to train our mind into remembering who we really are so that we can stand as those who see how low others went and provide the forgiveness that is necessary. And this is why we're not forgiving them to condone what they did. We're forgiving them to cut the strings off of our minds. So if you don't want to be a puppet reacting to what is happening, you must forgive. You must forgive them, for they know not what they're doing when they're oblivious to the truth of love. If they don't know that love is the only way, they're doing what they're doing because it's all that they know to do. It doesn't matter if it's evil. It doesn't matter if you want to label it that. It doesn't matter if it's heinous. It does not matter. It's a call for love because they're not connected. They're not connecting to the source of love. Every single time you forgive something that is going to make the stomach of some people turn, every time you can forgive it because you choose not to judge it, you enter into tolerance, another characteristic of a teacher of God. You cut those strings that bind you to the 3D world. You let yourself ascend. So, what is ascension? Ascension is an acceleration for those who want to do whatever it takes to have one thought system. To those who want to operate from only love, you need to cut the strings that bind you to the world of duality, where you have two choices, love or fear. If you keep being mad at them, if you keep wanting to punish them, if you want to take revenge, that's out of fear. Oh, we got to get rid of them so they don't come and hurt me, so they don't come and hurt my children, my grandchildren. That's fear. You have to understand that a desire to get rid of anything out there is because you don't feel safe as you are in the mind of God. That has to become clear. To allow yourself to experience the love of God is to allow everybody else to experience how far they want to go. If they want to play the game of limbo, let them go. And it's not that you let them go, is that you stop thinking that you know better for them. That's what love does. I don't know what anything is for. And the Course in Miracles, when depending on where you are on your journey, can be used in many ways in a very cold way because the ego gets spiritualized first. The ego takes on all of this information, and it has to be that way because your mind has to have it as potential. So when you are operating, oh, I don't know what anything is for. Let's all this bad dust stuff happen, and you're still operating from fear and judgment. It's okay. It's an important part of the journey. But eventually, when you hit those levels of maturity, spiritual maturity, where you're really recognizing the vastness of this world, anything can happen. And just as the prodigal son in the story of the Bible, we also are going to be received by God with a party. And the party is nothing more than a joyful returning to you using your mind with one thought system. So let's jump into lesson 96. Salvation comes from my one self. Paragraph number 1. Although you are one self, capital S self if you don't have your book, you experience yourself as two, as both good and evil, loving and hating, mind and body. This sense of being split into opposites induces feelings of acute and constant conflict, and leads to frantic attempts to reconcile the contradictory aspects of this self-perception. Self with a small s, ego perception. You have sought many such solutions and none of them has worked. The opposites you see in you will never be compatible, but one exists. All that this means is that we chose to have the experience of separation. Some went pretty low, did some pretty barbaric things, including the sacrifice of children. And we are just now going to be seeing more of that. Because one of the darkest things that is done and has been going on for a very long time is the production of adrenochrome. If you haven't heard of that term, I'm going to suggest that you Google it, but I am going to warn you. It is a very disgusting thing when you look at it through the eyes of the ego. Because raise your hand if you know what adrenochrome is. All right. If you do not know, there is only one way to get it. And the way that it is typically gotten, when you think about adrenochrome, it is blood that has been adrenalized. And how do you get your adrenaline going? Typically through doing fearful things, jumping off an scaring you to the point, but you believe you're going to be safe. So adrenochrome is the getting of the blood and frightening the one who produces that blood, because it cannot be animal blood. It has to be human blood. And you scare the person that you're going to take their blood from. And because there are beliefs that the blood of a child is purer because that child is in their innocence, and the studies that have been done with these bloods show that when you use the blood of a child and you scare that child before you take their blood, and typically you take their blood because you're emptying them of their blood to the point that they're going to die, so it is a sacrifice. That blood then, when you drink it, immediately regenerates your sense of energy. It's like the ultimate energy drink. That is an industry that has been going on for a very long time. You can say thousands of years. Why is the sacrifice of children something that was done in the Bible? Is because they sacrificed a child, they killed a child, and they drank the blood. And if you're wondering, Laina, how can you be saying this in your like so matter of fact? Well, because I've been reading these things. I've been studying these things. There were, like I said, my mom was all about mythology. It's like she used to read mythology to us to put us to sleep. I didn't get the sweet little storybooks that my little grandchildren get, the sweet little things that I read to Ryder and Ellie, not very different than what my mother read to me. It reminds me of Gary Renard, whose mother used to read to him about, which is so funny because my mother used to read to me that too, the story about Dante's Inferno. And when you grow up reading about these things and hearing about these things, you somehow, it's like, oh, okay, that happens. So I don't have to get all emotional about it because I know that God creates infinite ways for us to be. And because we've been given free will, we can do anything. We can go that low. And in that incredible game of limbo, some are choosing to go as far as they want to go because God is not going to punish a single one of them. God has already forgiven every one of them who are testing and trying all of the ways that you can block love. But you cannot block love forever. Eventually, they're going to return. And you know how they're going to return? Is when they begin to feel a little bit of that energy of forgiveness. Yes, when you forgive those who have done something that would turn your stomach, you're bathing them with the light of God. Guess what that light does? Helps them find their way home, helps them see their way out of darkness. When you put two and two together, like the Course tells us, the salvation of the world depends on me. The salvations of my brothers depend on me. You're very powerful. You are not only very powerful, but you are the ultimate savior of everything that there is. And when you go, but Laina, how can I have that much responsibility? I'm in charge of the world. When you understand who you are, then that doesn't feel that big. You realize I am the light. When you accept that you are the light and the light is what is powerful, then you get yourself out of the way. Meaning you get your ego identity out of the way. And you let yourself be, God, what would you have me do? Let me be an instrument of your peace. We have other people who've done that. And we love reading what they wrote. And they give us those beautiful prayers. God, let me be an instrument of your peace. Where there is hate, let me bring love. Where there is sorrow, let me, bring peace, comfort, whatever it is. We can do this. But first we have to understand that although we are one self, as it says here in sentence number 1, you experience yourself as two, as both good and evil, loving and hating, mind and body. The Course is asking you to pick one. You're a mind, because that's where all the power is. The thoughts that we think create our reality. You're a mind, you are loving, and you are good. But others are choosing to be bodies, to be unloving, to be fear-based, to be hating, and to be evil. It is not our job to go stop them from doing that. It is our job to recognize that God gave them permission. God gave all of us free will to try and go as far from love as we could. Some are more adventurous than others and had to go that far. I remember as a child when we would go on these wonderful vacations and we would go into the ocean. Some of my sisters, I had 3 sisters, still have 3 sisters, they would want to go diving deep, and some of them wanted to go scuba diving. I didn't want any of that. I want to stay on the surface. I never was one that wanted to go into those depths. Maybe in a previous life I did that. In this lifetime, many go really deep. And you know what? The further you go in the depths of the ocean, the darker it gets. Until you understand that the opposites are part of the 3D world and you accept that, you cannot free yourself from those puppet strings and choose only love, because the judgment keeps you attached to the 3D world, because the ego tells you, judging them is what makes you feel righteous, and the ego is telling you you're good, they're evil. But that is to live in duality and in polarity, and that does not allow you to ascend. In paragraph 2, it tells you the fact that truth and illusion cannot be reconciled no matter how you try, what means you use and where you see the problem must be accepted whatever you see, you got to accept that. You will attempt an endless list of goals you cannot reach, a senseless series of expenditures of time and effort, hopefulness and doubt, each one as futile as the one before and failing as the next one surely will. We've been there, we've done that. We built the jails, we built the systems. We've been conditioned to believe the politicians get one treatment and everybody else gets another one. Our minds have accepted, oh, they're corrupt, and we still fund them. We still give them all the power. We still elect them. We still get mad when somebody says maybe there's voter fraud. Why not be open-minded enough and see, is there really? Why not be willing to look at everything? If there's nothing to hide, then why not just expose everything to the light so that we can see clearly? These people who are constantly battling the things that they're not willing to look at is because the minds have been trained into supporting the very corruption, the very things that allow and foster that level of evil to happen. But we don't want to take responsibility for that because the ego is trained into blaming. Those ways that we protest and blame the next person and judge the next person, that is doing the same thing, expecting different results. There is only one way out of this if you have made the decision that you want total liberation. If you come to the place that you say, I want freedom from the ego, there's only one way out because salvation comes from your one self. You have to choose that. Paragraph number 3 says, problems that have no meaning cannot be resolved within the framework they are set. Two selves in conflict could not be resolved, and good and evil have no meeting place. The self you made can never be your capital S self, nor can your capital S self be split in two and still be what it, capital I, it, is and must forever be. A mind and body cannot both coexist. Make no attempt to reconcile the two, for one denies the other can be real. If you are physical, your mind is gone from your self-concept, for it has no place in which it could be really part of you. If you are spirit, then the body must be meaningless to your reality. This is where so many spiritual people draw their line. This is as low as they're going to go. The mind will believe, oh yeah, I'm spirit, but the ego is still in charge because it got spiritualized. And from its righteous place begins to say, that's terrible. We're going to take revenge on those people. Unless you find out, oops, those are the same people that I've been voting for. Those are the people that I've been supporting. No, we're not going to prosecute those people because those are associated with my political party, or those are associated with my home state, or those are associated with my favorite charities. Because the ego is going to be in conflict. You say you don't want evil, but we're not going to do something about this. You got to look at all the ways that you cannot win in the 3D world. It's impossible to have peace in a 3D world. Now, this planet is not 3D. You have to get clear about that. Your consciousness is what determines if you're 3D, 4D, 5D. Now, the planet has consciousness. We call that Gaia. Some pronounce it Gaia. The consciousness of the planet has already ascended to 5D. That's why it's going through lots of purges, the natural kinds of purges, and even the unnatural purging through geoengineering is still producing results that are beneficial to the planet because consciousness, Mother Nature, knows what to do. It's a much, much larger force, if you will. It's humongous. Each of us is kind of a small aspect of spirit, not utilizing our full power like this planet is. And this planet is ascending. It already decided it is going to operate 5D. So guess what is happening? Everything that is on like 5D is coming to the surface for us to decide what team are we on. And there's nothing wrong with being on Team Ego. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you've got to decide which one do you want to be consciously a part of. And guess what? Anybody who chooses the ego cannot consciously choose. But by not choosing another way, they are choosing to remain inside of that frequency. And again, God is not going to punish any of them. So do we want to take that on? It doesn't mean that we don't want correction. I absolutely want reforms. I want a clean government. I want all of these things to be exposed. But I know that punishing all the bad people doesn't really change the systems. The systems are the governance that we have allowed and we've given all of our power to, our allegiance to run the show, are the ones who allow all of this to happen. So you get rid of these bad actors, it won't take long before you get more bad actors. But the system has to be cleaned up. This is why when you're doing your inner work, you can change you can change your thought systems. You can go to all the healing worship events that you want to go to, retreats, whatever you want to call it, and you begin to spiritualize the bad actor, which is the ego. You got to go to the system. The system is two thought systems. You got to get clear about that. There are two thought systems. One is about remaining in the low frequencies of the ego, where duality exists, good and evil exists, and you try to be good because you're all spiritualized. I'm going to be good. We're not going to stand for that evil, which is amazing. I watched so many of my spiritual family and friends and people that I respected out here fighting against the evil. But that's just where they're at. So it's not for me to judge them, but I go, wow, this is why I chose to, for me, I'm not spiritual. I'm not in a spiritual journey anymore. I'm in a journey for expressing God. That's what I identify as. So if you want to know my genders, God, my pronouns, God, love. That's it. That's what I want to experience. But if you guys don't mind, bear with me here. Let's stay with this lesson. We won't finish it all today, but I want to read at least the next paragraph, paragraph 4. Spirit makes use of mind as means to find its self, capital S, self expression. And the mind, which serves the spirit, is at peace and filled with joy. Its power comes from spirit, and it is fulfilling happily its function here. Yet mind can also see itself divorced from spirit and perceive itself within a body it confuses with itself. Without its function, then it has no peace, and happiness is alien to its thoughts. That's why I want to get to that paragraph, because I want to leave us for the rest of this week thinking about what is it that is possible when we align ourselves with truth. It's not a comfortable journey. This is a journey that is not for the faint of heart, because you got to tell yourself a lot of times, oh, I was wrong about that. Oh, wow, I was wrong about that. Oh my gosh, the way I saw that was totally incorrect. My allegiance to that was totally based on programming. You have to have a come to Jesus time with you, meaning you got to question all of your beliefs. If they do not stand with truth, then they're incorrect. And guess what truth is? Truth is what God says is true. Everything is one. Everything is eternal. Everything is love. Everything is creative. And everything extends. Very simple. It extends. There's no end to it. It's infinite. It's going to continue. So if you're talking about evil done in the world, corruption, it's temporary. It's not going to be forever. Why? Because the light will not let it be. Everything has to hit a bottom. Bottom doesn't take you to the other side. Bottom is where you have to come back up. You have to return. You have to come back to the truth. Now, you can stay in darkness for a very long time. This planet certainly has been in that space for a very long time. And look, Jesus told us what to do 2,000 years ago. We're slow learners. We are all on the short bus. But that's okay. We are in the process of returning by our desire to experience peace. As it says, spirit makes use of mind. That means that you must go through a process of mind training. Mind training is what the Course in Miracles is all about. You've got to find your self-expression. You've got to know what you are. You've got to recognize God is what you are. God, your existence is God, nothing more than God being, expressing uniquely as you, who have identified with your separate body and identified with your beliefs. And if you grew up in a Christian family, you were programmed with Christian beliefs. And you've got to acknowledge that. And then you've got to go through the journey of getting curious and finding your own way of thinking. If you grow up in a family where Buddhism was the way they did it, then you grow up with those beliefs. And at some point, you have to come up with your own curious way to find the truth of who you are. This is why in the Bible it says at some point, I think it was Jesus who said that you have to leave your mother and father. You have to leave what you learned behind. You got to say, okay, mom, dad, you taught me that. Church, you taught me that, but that's not my truth. You got to be bold and courageous. That's why courage is such a high frequency. And most humans are not going to experience that level of courage. That comes right after the pride, that where you acknowledge, I am as God created me. I am worthy of liberation. I am worthy of being free of my thoughts. So I'm going to go through a process of mind training so that I can find my true spirit's expression. And you put yourself through this process. And in sentence 2, it says, and the mind which serves the spirit is at peace and filled with joy. Because you come to understand that the only thing that blocks your joy, and again, I watch my little grandchildren, and their parents are doing a beautiful job of putting the least amount of indoctrination on them. There's some happening, but that's because we still are in this 3D world, and some of that happens. But so much of it comes from within. They get to choose. They get to connect with. They get to be inspired by God within. What do you want to eat? What do you want to wear? I didn't give my kids those options. You're going to eat whatever I made. You're going to wear whatever I picked out. Why? Because I don't have time for this shit. And my sweet sister, well, she is my sister in Christ. My sweet daughter, so patiently, well, what do you want to eat? Oh, you don't want this? Well, what else do you want? You don't want to wear, you pick out your clothes. And I was too concerned about what people thought about me to let my kids walk out of the house mismatched, with wearing mismatched clothes. No, I am not going to have anybody laughing at my child. If they're Laina's child, they're coming into school perfectly dressed. Were they happy in those clothes? No, I don't care. They look good, so I look good. You know, we've got to understand the programming is there as part of the game. But if you want to play a different game, you gotta understand the game that you gotta get out, that you want to get out of. And it tells us really simply, spirit makes use of your mind. You allow the mind to be trained in a new way. You will find peace. You will find joy because it's all in there, blocked by those beliefs. Its power comes from spirit and it's fulfilling happily its function here. Yet mind can also see itself divorced from spirit and perceive itself within a body it confuses with itself. We have got to make a very important choice. And it's not like a life-saving choice because you're eternal. So you don't have to worry about losing your life. So what if you lose your human body? That's no big deal. You're not going to lose your life. You're eternal. You just may have to reincarnate a few more times and play the merry-go-round game. Nothing wrong with that. And I want you to remember that. Nothing wrong with that. God does not judge any one of us. But if you can play in the higher realms of love and collaboration and cooperation, isn't that better than baby killing and raping and murdering and lying and cheating and stealing and corruption? I don't know about you, but that's really boring to me now. There's nothing creative in that. There's nothing interesting in that. I don't want to spend any more time with anybody that's what they prefer to do. I rather be in what can we co-create that is going to elevate the consciousness of humanity, that's going to make life more fun and more free. Those things are what are exciting to me. All right, my friends. So yeah, Ascension with A Course in Miracles, from Epstein to being honest with yourself and acknowledging that humanity is at a point of transition. Some are going to choose to ascend, some are not. Some haven't gone as low as they want to go, and that is perfectly okay. It's like when you go to the beach and there is a big old party. Some here playing the limbo game, some over here playing, something else. Horseshoe, I can't remember. Go play whatever inspires you. But your power is in forgiving those who are not playing the game that you are done with. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm so grateful you are here. You want to go deeper with me into A Course in Miracles? Come join me in the Awareness Academy. I want to build a community of people who understand these truths and want to practice it together, because the times are going to intensify. They have to. They have to, because more of what has been dark has to be exposed for those who are turning on their light brighter, meaning they're observing and forgiving. And if you're inspired to do something about it, God bless you. If you're not inspired to go change the system, you're changing it simply by forgiving it. Know that that's how powerful you are. All right, friends. And anybody want to share any nuggets that you received today? If you do, I would love to hear it. If you don't, that's okay. All right. See you all next time. Love everybody. Bye-bye.